Hello, my beautiful friends. How are you today? This is Erin, and this is Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. So, I am talking today about something that is near and dear to my heart. Why? Because, well, I've had to learn how to do this over and over and over again. People ask me, like, how come I know so many techniques? And, like, how come I have all these skills, like from body work to coaching to yoga to leading retreats? And it's like, well, with reference to the skill set, as far as today's topic, which is conflict resolution, it is literally because I've had to use it in my relationships and I was not very good at it. So, the perspective that you're getting today is from someone who did not have these skills passed down whatsoever and has had their fair share of childhood trauma. I do have a fearful avoidant attachment style, which isn't, a life sentence. You can learn how to create secure attachments. But if you know what you're coming in with, you know that, okay, what are the tendencies of fearful avoidant? Is that criticism can sometimes be taken as an attack? Is that we want to push away and run away and hit the nuclear option whenever there's conflict? You can see why, wanting to be of this world and have deep and meaningful relationships, when that is your default, you're either going to kind of go with that. I was hoping a better word would come. Or you're going to learn how to work with it, work around it, work through it. And so that is part of the topic for today is conflict resolution. So my partner Matt and I have been together almost 7 years, and I absolutely love him. He is so good for my growth, for my, such a loving person. He's very open about how he is on the spectrum, and so I have a partner that is on the spectrum. So his brain is so special as far as how he can memorize things and sort of pull out information, and it's not just memorization. He knows how to process these things, and because he has so much information, it's like, imagine if you were giving a lecture on something and like all the history stuff, like you didn't have to look it up in a book or in Google. It was just like there. Wow. And then you can express from that space. That is Matt. And so when he presents, everyone's like, which means they're interested and in adoration, in case that was ambiguous. But that being said, we're both alphas, and past relationships I've been in as sort of I am the alpha, and then the other people were my betas, I guess. So, uh, but being in a relationship with another person who is quote unquote alpha is we both have big personalities. It's not like one person stuffs their needs down for the other. It's like we both have needs. We both talk about them. We both have boundaries, like all these things. So it's a very healthy relationship in a lot of ways. That being said, we have had lots of conflict, and learning how to resolve this conflict in peaceful ways has led us to try lots of different things to be able to work through it. And my one part of my book called Relationship Toolbox, and I also teach an extended version of that in my courses. A lot of it, like the Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, and the framework of expressing needs and the drama triangle by Mark Stevens. Like all that stuff has been explored by me on a very intimate level, and that's how I know how to teach it. Is because not only have I read about it, like that's an interesting theory, that's a nice concept, but it's been like I have applied it directly into my life with all the variables and all the conflicts and all the nervous system, becoming dysregulated. I have learned to use those tools in spite of my humanness. And so that's why I can talk about them on the way that I talk about them, because, uh, you know, as a yoga teacher, I try to be a yogacharya, not a yoga pundit, as my teacher Dinesh would say. Hi, Dinesh. Yogacharya is like embodiment. Like you use the tools, you practice, you show up. You don't just teach from a place of concept and theory. Is like you work through life experiences and teach from that way. And that is the kind of spiritual teacher that I am. So, today I want to talk about a framework that we came across, actually Matt came across, and I love it, and it is so effective, and I'm already taking it, and I am sort of adding on to it to apply to like a sort of solo experience, or if you have conflict resolution that you are trying to solve with like a partner, right? So it's called the 1, 2, 3 process, and it was developed by a licensed psychologist and I believe also social worker. But her name is Amanda Curtin, so I want to give credit where credit is due. I did not come up with this, but I am going to teach it from my own personal experience, and I may add tools to it that I think add to it, though it is really great on its own. So this framework, there's 3 steps to it, the 1, 2, 3 process. And the first step is to notice when you're triggered. So this is a part of conflict that a lot of people, I don't know, they pretend it doesn't exist, or like, I'm not triggered, you're triggered. And like, I've literally said that. The thing is if we can't recognize that we're triggered, is that we're going to be acting from this space that is a little bit more emotionally charged than we would like. And the concept that Amanda goes into is that there's this trigger, and the trigger is like it's touching something from your childhood, and like this sort of, she calls it bump, which would be some sort of conflict that you have with your partner. Just as an example, say that your partner yells, and it's not even necessarily the content. And I love that Amanda recognizes this, because for me, I'm a big voice, rhythm, cadence of sound type of person. I'm very sensitive to that, and she acknowledges that, which I'm like, thank you. But in the framework, there is the trigger, and the trigger touches something in childhood. Now, in her framework, part of it is that you would unpack, like, this reminded me of when my father used to yell at me. And then right after he had, this is not like in my experience, but I'm just using this as an example. After he would yell, then he would hit me. And oh my gosh, like I jump into fight or flight. So let's say that you were having this conversation with a partner, and you said, hey, listen, I'm triggered. This is me adding on, take some space. So window of tolerance, 1 through 6. So 6 is like, I am setting things on fire and have hit the nuclear option. Whereas 1 is like, I am perfectly regulated. Second is like, I am feeling tense. Third is like, this is where you want to take some space and announce I'm taking space. 4th, 5th, and 6th just get worse, as far as saying things you don't mean, slamming doors, or kicking them off their hinge. So taking space, coming back, and unpacking. So, hey, when you yelled, it really reminded when my father would yell at me, and then he would smack me across the face. And sharing this sort of childhood trauma and experience, and connecting it to the conflict that's in the moment, is incredibly empowering. And what it does is it allows your partner to understand where you're coming from, to understand why you had this big emotional reaction. So, my partner would think that I was trying to cut him off, that I was not letting him speak, and that that I didn't want to face conflict. And the thing is that I did, and I like to resolve things, and I like communication. I love information. Yeah, I'm curious about people. Yeah, I have a love of that. But I could understand why he thought that, and then that would trigger something in his childhood about not being heard, not being seen, all these things, right? So you can see how this could apply maybe into your relationship, and certainly with the example that I gave, how it applies to my relationship. So there's a trigger, and then do what you need to do to regulate, and then come back, unpack the childhood a little bit, right? And connect it to the sort of current bump in the road. Then the next step is to recognize and express how is your partner different than your father? How is this situation different than the one that was triggered from childhood? And to say it, to express it, even if, and the first time that I did this, I was literally like, okay, well, you're not a jerk. You know, it was like very hard to bring because I was pulled into this childhood just like memory, and it was like very real in my nervous system, and I had to logically explain, why is this not the same? And when I did that, it was like, okay, like I started to sort of come back online, and my partner appreciated it, and we were able to really see each other. And then if the other partner has childhood stuff, then you do the same thing for them, like they do it for you, you do it for them. And, then at the end, this is something that I'm adding on, is like a coming back together and talking about like all the things that you love about them. Like you're so different from this person because, you are committed to your own growth, and you um, study yourself, and you talk about your feelings, and, you are open to having different kinds of experiences with me. And then at the end, of course, got to get some hugging in. Hugging, maybe a little bit of humming. So I just had a coach school, and one of the best groups I've ever had. Oh my gosh. Let's see if I can remember everybody's name off the top of my head. J Raw, J Raw, J Raw, J Raw. Love J Raw. He was my student back in 2017. He's an adaptive athlete. I've had him on this podcast. Exceptional human being. He was in my training. Justin Goldman. I love you, Justin. He actually stayed with me, like in a little, at my house in a little build on suite. And that's the kind of things I do for my students, y'all. So, but Justin is a very special young man, and I've been coaching with him for about a year. I love his family, I love his mother, I love his dad, and what a charismatic, super talented person. Susan Zolan, who she just kind of like wafted into Thrive, and just like what a compassionate human being and sweetie pie. And she is also hilarious, which I always appreciate. And speaking of hilarious, Leona. Leona is actually an instructor at my studio, and I did name drop her on the last podcast, and she listened, and she gave me like a big happy emoji. So hi, Leona. Here we go again. Leona is very compassionate. I call her my bhakta. She is a devotional yogi, and she is in service to others often. And I always like to keep tabs on my people like that to make sure that they're giving back to themselves. Stephanie was in the course, and Stephanie, she had like these big revelations, these big openings, and I'm just like so honored to work with her and to have her in the course. And then of course Svetlana, my Russian gym wife, I call her because we go to the gym together, and she is near and dear to my heart, and also hilarious. So I think I got everybody. Boy, I hope I didn't leave anybody out. So yeah. So anyways, conflict resolution. Learning this stuff is so important if you have a relationship. Hopefully, everybody has some kind of relationship, whether it's friendship or if it's romantic partnership. Certainly I understand that this is the kind of work, it's very intimate. This is not, if you have an argument with your boss, like, you're probably not going to be, tell me about your childhood trauma, and let's try to connect this to a modern point. But even if you don't have a partner to do this with, and I'm going to discuss this in my next podcast, as far as how you can use this framework and how you can do this work on your own. Um, if you learn how to do that, then, I mean, you can really heal yourself from the inside out, connecting these sort of modern bumps to the childhood trauma, and then you gain connection to that emotional charge, and you're able to resolve it within you. Can you imagine like how much of our actions are taken from this sort of unconscious, sort of subconscious override that happens that makes us act in ways that we're not particularly proud of. So anyways, I hope that this new tool is useful for you. Amanda Curtin, she has some stuff on YouTube. She has a lot more students that are using this method, but you can certainly find interviews with her on YouTube. So I hope that this is valuable to you. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Namaste.